truth is, Rabotai, that unfortunately right now we have a situation where many of the Amaleks are being provoked in different ways by Jews. Part of it is because we're making that same mistake that we made a couple of thousand years ago at the time of Purim, where we think that because we are called the chosen people by God Himself, therefore we can do whatever we want to anyone that's not part of the chosen. We could take advantage of them, we could fool them, we could cheat them, lie to them. There is no mistake greater than this. Eliyahu Navi, Zachur Letov, says in Tana Deve Eliyahu Rabbah, in the 9th parasha, and he says, with heaven and earth as my witnesses, I testify that whether it's a Jew or a Goy, man or a woman, male or a female, everything is judged based on their actions. And that's how the Ruach HaKodesh can be upon a person. Meaning that anyone, Jew or Gentile, can actually get Ruach HaKodesh if they act in holiness. But holiness based on the definition of God, the God of Israel, not holiness based on Yoshke or Buddha or some other Pikachu. We're talking about holiness based on HaKadosh Baruch Hu Himself. He says whether you're a Jew or a Gentile, male or female, if you're a servant or you're a master, don't make a difference. If you're a holy person, you could even acquire Ruach HaKodesh. Meaning, Rabotai Karim, that when it comes to Hashem, He's not looking at you in an unfavorable way just because you weren't born a Jew, or you were born a Jew, by default you're favorable. He's looking at you based on your actions. He's not looking at your color. He's not looking, oh, he's black, so I'm going to give him some favoritism. No, he's white, I'm going to give him some favoritism. No, he's tall, I'm going to give him some favoritism. Nobody gets favoritism. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't care what color you are. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't care what gender you are. HaKadosh Baruch Hu doesn't care how tall or short you are, how rich or poor you are. He doesn't care about those things. He cares about your actions. If your actions are holy, you become holy. If your actions are not, the contrary. Now, when a person understands that anyone can acquire Ruach HaKodesh, which is virtually the highest level of spirituality a person can get to in this world other than prophecy itself, automatically he starts treating the world around him differently. And he starts taking the Halacha into consideration of how to do business with non-Jews. Because we're surrounded by them. There's almost 8 billion of them in comparison to 15, 20 million of Jews. So nonetheless, you're going to end up dealing with non-Jews, which is not a problem as long as you're not a problem. Now, the Yam Shel Shlomo, which is Rabbi Shlomo ben Yechiel Luria, about 500 years ago, he was one of the Gdolei Ador in a generation where there are some extraordinary stories about him, where there was one time a Avrech who married a woman and swore to her that since she is his first love, he's always going to be with her. But as Hashem would have it, one day this woman became very sick, his wife became very sick, and she made him promise to her, make a neder that he won't remarry. He won't marry anyone else after she dies. And the husband foolishly said yes. But of course he didn't understand what he's getting himself into. Now, she died, and he found himself as a single father with 3 kids, having a very, very big difficulty doing it himself. And he came to the Gadol Hador, Rabbi Shlomo Luria, and asked him if he could get an heter. If he can get an heter, a leniency from the Gadol Hador, to nullify this neder. Rabbi Shlomo Luria said, your neder is void. I don't even need to nullify it. It's void. It's not a valid neder. Why? You're not allowed to make such a neder because you are obligated to have a boy and a girl. You had 3 boys with your first wife, which means you did not fulfill the full mitzvah. You have to marry again. Plus, it says in the Torah that it's not good for a man to be by himself, meaning you have to marry another woman. You have to at least try. So the neder that you made, the swear that you made, the vow that you made to your wife that passed away is not a valid neder. You can go ahead and remarry. Now this Avrech found a woman, and after a short period of time, they decided they're going to get married. On the day of their wedding, suddenly the Avrech, the guy that's about to get married, passed out and died. The whole community is in uproar. We see that's what happens because he made a neder to his wife, and I'm sure his wife probably was really upset about it in heaven, and she caused him to die. So it's really Rabbi Shlomo Luria's fault. So this word came to the Rav. He said to them, please make sure that when you're going to bury the body, bring it back to my house first. Past, where you carried the body. In those days, the whole community would be involved. They would carry the body, and they would walk it all the way to the cemetery. He says, pass by my house first. Stop by my house with the body. So now they pass by his house. Rav Luria comes outside, takes the talit off of his face, looks at the face, mumbles a few prayers, and puts a note inside the talit, right next to the body. He says, bury him like this, but don't put the sand on top of him. Leave the thing open. Leave him out there like that. Put him in the hole, but don't cover it. Okay, the rabbi says, we do. They took him, went to the Chevra Kadisha, took him, put him in the hole. Everybody cried, and everyone left, but they didn't cover the hole, which is the last step you're supposed to do. The next morning, everyone sees the Avrech walking in town. The guy that died the day before. They see him walking in town. What are you doing? He's dying. People are Tchiyat HaMetim, resurrection of the dead. The guy says, no resurrection of the dead. It's just that I went up to Shamayim. They said, yeah, it's your time. I said, yeah, well, you're not allowed to come here though. What do you mean? But you said it's my time. Because it was your time. But Rav Luria wrote a letter to us. He put it on you. And he said, listen, whether it's his time or it's not his time, what you're doing right now is going to cause a Chilul Hashem. Why? They're going to think it's something that has to do with this neder. Not allowed to take him. Rav Luria doesn't agree with the Beit Din of Shamayim. We have to go with Rav Luria. So you have to go back and live for a bunch more years. Now, the poor guy, everybody was scared of him now. The guy just dead, now he's alive. Okay, it's a big miracle, but people are scared to marry him. The girl doesn't want to marry him now. This guy's, I don't know, he's a zombie or something. Hashem Yachem. So the guy was having a major difficulty. So Rav Luria saw this. It's a real story. And I'll tell you how they found the story. So Rav Luria saw this, that's causing a big commotion. So he did a special Kabbalistic prayer or some type of act that made everyone forget. The whole town forgot what happened. So how do we know the story 500 years later? Chevra Kadisha. Chevra Kadisha, when they get a body, they write down who it is, his name, date of death, how he died, all the details. They write it down. So they have when the guy finally died years later, it's like, wait a minute, this guy's already here. And at that time, they said, oh, the Rav was Rav Luria. They looked into the books of Rav Luria, his personal journal, told about the whole act of everything that happened that he made everybody forget, and that's how they publicized the story. Chevra Kadisha. Chevra Kadisha. So now, if Rav Luria says something, are you going to listen to him or no? So this is what he says. This is what he says. Rav Luria, alav shalom, Rav Luria, in his Sefer, the Sefer that he wrote this, by the way, this whole story is Yam Shel Shlomo. Oh, no, this is the Sefer I'm talking about right now. So this is actually in his personal writings. In his personal writings, that's when he wrote this. But in his Sefer Yam Shel Shlomo, in Perek Eser, the 10th Perek, commentary on the Gemara Bava Kama, in Siman 18, he says the following: one could benefit from the mathematical error that leads to a financial benefit of a non-Jew, but only if you're not causing the error. So, this is a clarity on the issue where there is an halacha that says if a non-Jew, if a Jew loses something or makes a mistake, you have to give him back his money. You cannot take advantage of another Jew. But some people think that if a non-Jew makes a mistake, I'm by default allowed to take the money. Wrong. Wrong. Rav Luria clarifies one part of it. He says, if the non-Jew makes a mistake, let's say, for example, he gives you change. You did a deal with him, he gives you a bunch of change. Instead of giving you, let's say, $20 bills, he gives you $20 $100 bills. Instead of $20, he gives you $2,000. So Rav Luria says, first and foremost, no. If you're the one that caused them to make the mistake by confusing him, by telling him, no, use this one, and you knew he's making a mistake, forbidden 100%. It's 100% stealing. You're not allowed to cause the non-Jew to make the error. Because he is, especially if he works for you, he's under you, it's forbidden. Even if the goy is never going to know about it. But in fact, even further, if you see him counting the change, and he gave you $2,000 instead of $20, doesn't have to necessarily be that much, I'm just giving you examples. And you know it's a mistake. And you didn't cause him to make that mistake. He did it on his own. You're still not allowed to take the money until you tell him, listen, you should double check, or I'm just relying on what you did. Meaning you're giving him the warning signs to double check his work to make sure that this is okay. Like, you have to give him warning signs, you have to make sure to be honest with the guy. And not just say, oh no, you made a mistake, it's his problem. Why? Because if the non-Jew makes a mistake and the Jew takes advantage of it, it not only looks bad for business, it now also looks bad for Judaism, even if you're not a religious Jew. Because the non-Jews don't look at religious Jews or non-religious Jews differently. They look at everybody as Jews. Like today, the thing they had in Belgium, the anti-Semitic parade they had in Belgium today, with all types of caricatures making fun of Jews, they didn't really care if the Jew is a religious Jew or a non-religious Jew. Some of the costumes were costumes of religious Jews with big noses and big ears and big things, making fun of Jews. Some of them were just making fun of Jews without it. It didn't make a difference to them. They hate everybody alike, whether they're religious or not religious. They were dressing up as Nazis regardless. Now, the Rambam in Ilchot Gzela, chapter 11, Halacha number 4, says that a mistake a mistake in accounts, meaning a monetary mistake that is made by a non-Jew, is considered like a lost item, and it's permissible to benefit from it, but this only applies if he makes the mistake by himself. Meaning the same thing that Rav Luria said 500 years ago, he was just quoting the Rambam from 900 years ago. It wasn't really a chidush by Rav Luria, but in essence you see how the Chachamim continue working off of each other. They're not bringing new Torah to the world. Now it's forbidden to cause a Gentile to make a mistake. Further he elaborates, he says that a Gentile's error means that you have to tell him, I'm relying on your account, the Rambam says. And if he still doesn't correct himself, then you could take it, because then this guy's insisting on just losing money. But if you correct him, and he still insists, no, just take it, then this guy is either, something's wrong with him, this guy just wants to give you a gift. But if you tell him over and over again, he still insists, now you have a serious issue. So what does this have to do with cash advance? When I spoke to a few people that were in a cash advance business, and I told them, listen, it's an unethical business. You're charging the average person that's in a desperate need for money for his business enormous interest that's 3, 4, 5, 10, 100, 200 times the industry average, only because they can't get the loan from anyone else. If they were able to get their loan from a regular bank, from Chase Manhattan or JP Morgan or Wells Fargo or some normal bank and get a loan for 6, 7%, they'd never go to these thieves at the cash advance business. They never go to them. But they come into the cash advance business and they're signing off all types of documents that tell them, listen, you're going to pay 80% interest, 90% interest, 100% interest, 400% interest in some places. Some guy says, no, we only charge 40%, only 40%, as if it's allowed. I said, you're not allowed to do it. You are taking advantage of the people that are desperate. And then he responds to me, he goes, yeah, but they're choosing to sign on their own and they're not even Jewish. If they were Jews, then okay, we're not even allowed to charge Jews interest at all. But he says you're allowed to charge non-Jews interest. You're allowed to charge them. So they're signing the contract. I said, no, wrong. First of all, you assuming you're allowed to charge interest to non-Jews is already a mistake by itself. There's actually criteria of who you're allowed to and who you're not allowed to, and who is allowed to charge and who's not, which we'll get to in a second. But further than that, you know you're taking advantage of them. And just because they're signing the agreement and making the mistake doesn't mean it's allowed. Why? Because you are the one that's leading them astray. You are the one that's telling them, listen, I'm going to get you $100,000 in 24 hours. I'm going to get you $200,000, save your house, save your business, save everything in 3 days. You're going to get it. You're enticing them to do this mistake, to make this mistake. That's not allowed by any standard. Jew, non-Jew, even a cow, you're not allowed to lend money that way. You are the one that's causing their error. It's not like they're just doing it on their own. Now, the Rambam in the commentary on the Mishnah, in Masechet Kelim, chapter 12, section 7, Mishnah number 7, says, stealing from non-Jews is number 1, a transgression against Hashem's will. Hashem does not want you to steal from non-Jews. Know that. 2, reinforces undesirable character traits, meaning you're stealing from people, it's going to get you to start eventually steal from Jews. You're stealing from non-Jews, eventually you're going to steal from Jews too. You're charging non-Jews interest, eventually you're going to charge Jews interest. 3, you're going to end up leading to Chilul Hashem, desecration of Hashem's name. Especially, Rabbi Ephraim says, especially if you look like a religious Jew. You're going to lead to Chilul Hashem.